There's a white powder that costs $6 and kills mold permanently, eliminates ants and cockroaches without any possibility of resistance, neutralizes odors at the source, softens hard water, preserves wood against rot, and works as a fire retardant on fabric. Not slows mold growth, not masks the odor, not delays the infestation, eliminates each of those problems at the chemical level with a single application that does not degrade, does not evaporate, and does not need to be reapplied. No fumes, no protective gear, no professional application. $6 worth of powder from the laundry aisle of any grocery store, sitting in a box right next to the detergent you have been spending $40 a month on. Chinese physicians documented it in medical texts during the Tang Dynasty in the 7th century. Medieval European glassmakers considered it so valuable they imported it from Persia along the Silk Road and guarded the supply routes like military assets. The United States Army used it to treat wooden structures in tropical Pacific theaters during World War II because synthetic fungicides could not keep pace with jungle humidity. Goldsmiths, jewelers, and metalworkers from Cairo to Constantinople relied on it for over 1,000 years because it was the only flux that made metal bonding reliable at high temperature. Every civilization with access to it found multiple essential uses for it within a generation of discovery. That is not coincidence. That is chemistry so versatile that independent civilizations kept finding new applications for centuries without exhausting them. And it cost $6 at the grocery store. It has always cost almost nothing. Then someone in a corporate boardroom looked at a $60 billion global cleaning products market and understood exactly what that meant. A powder that replaces mold killer, insecticide, laundry booster, water softener, and wood preservative in a single $6 box cannot be allowed to exist in public consciousness. Not banned, not discredited, just quietly buried under 60 years of branded product marketing and a regulatory campaign that the chemical industry spent decades designing. They did not stop recommending it because it failed. They stopped because it worked too well, and what could not be patented could not be monetized. So the industry did something far more effective than banning it. They made you afraid of it. This is the story of borax, the compound that built civilizations and that a $60 billion industry spent 60 years teaching you to forget. Welcome to Forbidden Camping. If these stories matter to you, the subscribe button and the bell are the best way to make sure this knowledge survives. Here we open the vaults, the industry locked shut. In 700 AD, in the trading cities of Tang Dynasty China, physicians and alchemists were working with a mineral salt they called peng sha, harvested from the dry lake beds of Tibet and Inner Mongolia. They used it to treat skin infections, to preserve food during transport across the empire, and as a soldering flux in the metalwork of Buddhist ceremonial objects. Chinese medical texts from this period document peng sha as a treatment for inflammation and bacterial skin conditions with clinical specificity that suggests centuries of accumulated practical knowledge. They did not have laboratory equipment, they had observation repeated across generations. The mineral traveled west along the Silk Road and reached the glassmaking workshops of Venice by the 10th century. Venetian glassmakers discovered that adding it to molten glass lowered the melting point, allowed more precise control during blowing, and produced a harder, clearer final product than any formulation they had previously used. Venice became the glassmaking capital of the medieval world. For 3 centuries, Venetian glassmakers operated under penalty of death if they revealed their techniques to outsiders. The mineral they guarded was borax. By the 12th century, goldsmiths and jewelers across the Islamic world were using borax as a metalworking flux so routinely that Persian trade records document it as a standard commodity alongside copper and tin. It was the compound that made precision metalwork possible at scale because it dissolved metal oxides that would otherwise prevent clean bonds between surfaces. In 15th century Europe, alchemists wrote about it under the Latin name borax in manuscripts that survive in the British Library and the Biblioteca Nazionale in Florence. They documented its ability to dissolve rust, clean metal surfaces, and preserve organic material against fungal decay. The substance was not a secret. It was widely known and widely used. The Aztec civilization harvested naturally occurring borax deposits from lake beds in what is now Mexico and used concentrated solutions as a disinfectant for wounds and as a preservative for ceremonial textiles. No contact with the old world, the same substance, the same observations, the same uses. That is not folk medicine. That is convergent chemistry confirmed independently by Tang Dynasty physicians, Venetian glassmakers, Persian goldsmiths, and Aztec healers across 1,000 years of human history. Here is the chemistry that the cleaning products industry does not want you to understand, because once you understand it, you will never buy a separate mold spray, ant poison, odor eliminator, or laundry booster again. Borax is sodium tetraborate. When dissolved in water, it forms a mildly alkaline solution with a pH of around 9.3. That alkalinity disrupts the metabolic function of mold, fungi, and bacteria at the cellular level. It does not just kill the surface growth you can see, it penetrates porous surfaces, wood, grout, drywall, and creates an environment in which mold cannot regenerate. One treatment on a wood surface is typically effective for years because borax does not evaporate. It does not break down under UV exposure. It does not wash away unless physically scrubbed with water under pressure. It sits in the pores of the material and continues working indefinitely. For insects, borax works through a completely different mechanism. When ants or cockroaches walk through borax powder or consume bait containing it, the compound disrupts their digestive system and destroys their exoskeletal structure over the following 24 to 72 hours. Crucially, the slow onset of effect is what makes it devastatingly effective against colonies. Foragers carry borax bait back to the nest before dying, exposing the queen and every other member of the colony. Commercial ant baits that generate millions of dollars in annual revenue contain borax as their primary active ingredient. They charge $8 for a plastic trap containing fractions of a gram of the same compound you can buy in bulk for $6 a box. For hard water, borax sequesters the calcium and magnesium ions that reduce soap effectiveness and leave mineral deposits on surfaces. Half a cup added to a laundry load replaces water softening products that cost 10 times as much and contain the same active chemistry with added fragrances and synthetic fillers. One compound, 5 completely separate mechanisms, 5 separate product categories, 5 separate product budgets that a $6 box eliminates overnight. Before I go further, everything I have revealed barely scratches the surface of what has been hidden from you. I spent months gathering the survival techniques, the DIY methods, and the suppressed knowledge that industries have buried for decades. All of it is inside the complete forbidden camping vault. The tannic acid that stops rust permanently for $3, the earth battery that generates free electricity from 2 metals and wet soil, the diatomaceous earth that kills any pest without the possibility of chemical resistance for $5, the Trom wall that cuts your heating bill by 70% with black paint and glass, the linseed oil formula that restores weathered wood for $2, the activated charcoal that replaces $60 a year in water filter cartridges for $4, and now the complete borax application guide with exact ratios, mixing instructions, and every use case the cleaning industry has spent 60 years hiding from you. 10 survival guides in one vault, 0 filler, every page built for immediate action. The link is in the description right now. But stay here, because the regulatory story behind borax is where the real suppression begins. And it is the most deliberate burial this channel has ever documented. In 1942, the United States Army Corps of Engineers had a crisis in the Pacific Theater. Wooden structures, barracks, storage platforms, bridge supports, dock, framing were being destroyed by fungal decay and wood-boring insects within months of construction in the extreme humidity of Pacific Island environments. Synthetic fungicides and insecticides of the era failed under continuous tropical moisture exposure. Supply lines could not support the volume of replacement materials the decay rates demanded. Army engineers began emergency testing of known wood preservation compounds on treated timber samples in accelerated tropical exposure conditions. Borax solutions applied to raw lumber at the treatment stage produced documented resistance to fungal decay and insect infestation superior to every synthetic alternative tested at a fraction of the material cost. The Army adopted borax treatment as standard protocol for prefabricated wooden structures shipped to Pacific Island installations for the remainder of the war. The documentation is preserved in Army Corps of Engineers historical archives, not classified, not hidden. Simply never mentioned again after 1945, when the synthetic chemical industry needed customers. A study published in the Forest Products Journal in 1994 confirmed what Pacific Theater engineers had documented 50 years earlier. Borax treatment of raw timber at concentrations achievable with hardware store materials produced fungal resistance comparable to commercial pressure-treated lumber across an 18-year field test. The study was cited 11 times in subsequent academic literature and completely ignored by every major wood treatment manufacturer operating in North America. After the war, the chemical industry had a problem. Companies like SC Johnson, Reckitt Benckiser, and Procter & Gamble had invested hundreds of millions building the modern household cleaning product industry. They had created separate product categories for every separate cleaning problem. A different branded product for laundry, a different one for mold, a different one for odor. A different one for insects, a different one for hard water, each with its own formulation, its own patent, its own marketing campaign, its own retail shelf space, its own recurring revenue stream. A sixth box that collapses all of those categories into one does not fit anywhere inside that economic architecture. The global cleaning products market generates over $60 billion a year. The household pest control segment adds another $8 billion. The wood treatment and preservation market adds $5 billion more. Across those three categories alone, we are looking at over $70 billion in annual revenue, built on selling you separate proprietary solutions to problems that a single non-patentable mineral salt addresses more effectively. You cannot patent borax. It is a naturally occurring mineral compound found in dry lake beds on every inhabited continent. You cannot create a subscription model around a $6 box that treats your entire home for 6 months. You cannot justify a $15 mold spray, a $12 ant trap, and a $10 water softener in the same shopping cart when a single box on the laundry aisle handles all three. So the industry did two things. First, they repackaged it. The active ingredient in the market-leading ant bait product sold across North America is borax. The active compound in dozens of premium mold control products is sodium borate, which is borax by another name. They take cents worth of mineral salt, bind it in a proprietary delivery mechanism, put it in branded packaging with safety warnings in large font, and sell it to you at 20 times the raw material cost. Second, and this is the part they are most proud of, they funded a regulatory campaign. In 2010, the European Chemicals Agency reclassified borax as a substance of very high concern under REACH regulation, citing reproductive toxicity data. The reclassification was based on studies using doses many orders of magnitude higher than any household exposure scenario. The same year, the EU removed borax from the approved food additives list, despite centuries of documented safe use at culinary concentrations. The result was a decade of consumer media coverage treating borax as a dangerous chemical that should be kept away from children, pets, and skin. Product review websites, parenting blogs, and home improvement channels began recommending alternatives, branded alternatives with profit margins that borax never had. Meanwhile, the United States EPA continues to classify borax as a low-hazard compound, the same substance that received emergency food safety clearance for use in military rations in the Pacific Theater, the same compound that Chinese physicians administered medicinally for 13 centuries without documented toxicity at normal use levels. The regulatory fear campaign worked. An entire generation of homeowners was taught to be afraid of a mineral salt that has been used safely in food, medicine, and industry for over 1,000 years. If you have made it this far, you already know more about household chemistry than 99% of the people who threw their box of borax away after reading a parenting blog in 2011. Subscribe and share this with someone who is still buying 5 separate cleaning products for problems this one compound solves permanently. Everything the industry buried is inside the complete forbidden camping vault. The link is in the description. Stay with me, because here is exactly what you do with this. Go to the laundry aisle of any grocery store and buy a box of 20 Mule Team Borax. It is still sold widely across North America and is available from bulk suppliers everywhere else. A 65-ounce box costs $6 to $8 and will last the average household 6 months of regular multi-use application. For mold treatment on grout, wood, or drywall, dissolve 1 cup of borax in 1 gallon of warm water. Apply directly to the affected surface with a brush or sponge. Do not rinse. The borax needs to remain in the material to prevent regrowth. Within 24 hours, the mold will die. Within 72 hours, the surface will show no visible growth. One treatment on a bathroom grout line typically lasts over a year without reapplication. For ant and cockroach elimination, mix 1 teaspoon of borax with 3 teaspoons of sugar and enough water to make a thick paste. Place small amounts of the paste on pieces of cardboard near entry points and activity zones. The sugar attracts foragers. The borax kills the colony from within over 48 to 72 hours. This is the exact active mechanism inside every commercial ant bait sold at hardware stores for $8 per trap. You just made it for 2 cents. For laundry, add half a cup of borax directly to the drum before adding clothes. It softens water, boosts detergent performance, and eliminates odor compounds that synthetic detergent alone cannot break down. Your detergent use will drop by roughly 30% because softened water requires less surfactant to clean effectively. For camping gear and outdoor wood treatment, dissolve 2 cups of borax in 1 gallon of water and brush or spray onto any raw wood surface. Tent stakes, wooden tool handles, camp furniture, shelter framing. Allow to dry completely. The treatment penetrates the wood grain and provides fungal and insect resistance that persists through multiple seasons of outdoor exposure. A homesteader in rural Oregon documented her borax mold treatment protocol on a 1960s farmhouse bathroom that had experienced recurring black mold behind the tile for over a decade. 3 commercial mold remediation companies had quoted between $2,400 and $4,800 for full tile removal and wall replacement. She mixed a $6 box of borax into a gallon of water, applied it with a paintbrush to every affected surface, and left it to dry. She retreated once 6 months later. That bathroom has shown 0 mold regrowth for 4 years. Her total material cost was $12. The remediation company that quoted $4,800 never got a callback. I need to be honest with you about the limitations. Borax is not appropriate for use near open food preparation surfaces without rinsing, despite its culinary history at higher concentrations. For surface treatments in kitchens, apply and allow to dry in areas away from direct food contact zones. It is mildly irritating to eyes and mucous membranes. Avoid inhaling the dust during dry application, especially in enclosed spaces. A basic dust mask during mixing handles this completely. Do not use in bait formulations in areas where pets will have direct access to the paste. The sugar content makes it attractive to animals as well as insects. Place baits in enclosed spaces or behind appliances where insects travel but pets cannot reach. And the wood treatment application requires that the borax fully dry and cure into the wood surface before the wood is exposed to sustained water contact. For structures that will be partially submerged or constantly wet, borax alone is not sufficient protection. Within those limits, this compound is the most cost-effective, historically validated, and broadly applicable household chemistry tool that exists. Every civilization that stumbled onto this mineral salt found it indispensable. The Tang Dynasty physician who treated wound infections with Pengsha solution in 700 AD, the Venetian glassmaker who guarded the Silk Road supply route like a military secret in the 12th century, the Persian goldsmith who used it to make metal bonds that held for centuries, the Army Corps of Engineers who made it standard protocol for wooden structures in the Pacific in 1943, and your grandparents who kept a box of it under the sink and used it for everything because their parents had taught them and their parents before them. Then one generation threw the box away because a parenting website in 2011 told them it was dangerous, citing a study about rats consuming doses 100 times higher than any household application. That is not consumer protection. That is brand protection. $70 billion in annual cleaning and pest control revenue depends on you never realizing that a $6 box on the laundry aisle renders 17 separate branded products unnecessary. Every mold spray, ant trap, water softener, odor eliminator, and laundry booster you have ever purchased depends on you continuing to believe that each separate problem requires a separate proprietary solution. None of that is true. Not one word of it. The chemistry did not change. The effectiveness did not change. The mineral deposits in the dry lake beds of California, Turkey, and Argentina have not stopped producing. Diatoms have never charged a licensing fee, and neither has borax. If this vault changed how you look at the cleaning products under your sink, the ant problem in your kitchen, the mold behind your bathroom tile, or the gear storage challenges every camper and overlander faces in the field, subscribe and share this now. Every share puts a crack in the wall they spent 60 years building. Every subscription keeps this channel digging where they do not want us to look. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside is the compound that Viking shipbuilders used to preserve timber for 8 centuries, that the Royal Navy issued to every carpenter on every ship in the Atlantic Fleet, and that the modern marine industry charges $200 a gallon for after stripping out the one ingredient that actually does the work,